Great work! You're almost at the end of the course. This week focuses on the new conflicts that are brewing in Asia as we speak, with China, Japan, North Korea, the Philippines, the United States, Russia, and other world powers flexing their muscles for influence across Asia and over the global economy. These tensions are unfolding by the day, which makes it very difficult to predict what will happen next. In any event, nobody 30 years ago could have imagined that the world would look like it is now. Namely, China is now the aggressive superpower that is rivaling the US economy all over the world, which finally came to a head under the tariff war between China and President Trump in 2019. The once peace-loving Japan is on the road to becoming a military power yet again, putting its neighbors on the defensive and opening up old fears of renewed Japanese imperialism. North Korea is as unpredictable as ever, as the Kim dictatorship is apparently rebuilding all the missile launch platforms that it promised to destroy. This keeps the rest of Asia permanently preparing for war. And now China, the Philippines, Malaysia, the Americans, and the rest of Asia are on the brink of nuclear war over uninhabited islands? Don't worry if you feel overwhelmed this week. You will read about different topics that might feel disconnected. Just focus on what you think are the main factors creating tension across Asia today. And don't worry, this video is short. I will leave the details to the articles. For China, just skim the pages assigned from your textbook to see how China is changing in the last 2 decades, and how it has become so entangled with the U.S. economy. It may also help you to rewatch my e-lesson from week 3 on Chinese politics to see why much of Asia sees China as a threat today. For help with Japan, you might also want to rewatch my e-lesson for week 4 to see how Japanese foreign policy is changing from one of pacifism to what they call aggressive self-defense. For the first topic this week, focus on the brewing trade war or tariff war between the US and China. Both countries invest trillions of dollars in each other, making America literally dependent on China to manufacture its products, and making China dependent on the United States for profit and demand. Quite simply, both economies cannot survive without the other as of 2019. Despite this, Americans have long complained that this relationship unfairly benefits China and takes away American jobs. After decades of tension, President Trump decided to balance out the debt, as he called it, by imposing hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. Ideally, tariffs make it harder for China to export products, punishing American companies for exporting jobs, and encourage American manufacturing. But of course, China is now fighting back with its own tariffs to punish the US for breaking trade agreements. But China has planned ahead for all of this. While America has struggled to reduce its dependency on China, China has become a financial superpower across much of the third world. In particular, China is investing hundreds of billions in African economies that are desperate for modern technology to fuel their growth. Read the article this week for more. Even more skillfully, China often literally gives millions as a gift to the nations it is trying to influence, or forgives them of crippling debt, or builds a massive project for them like a dam or freeway that will modernize the entire country. Or pay for a museum in Senegal celebrating Black Power and African liberation from European colonialism? Or build the entire parliament of the African Union as a gift? What this propaganda obviously does is sanitize China's image as a global force for good, gives China new allies against its future battles, and creates long-term trade dependency between the Third World and China. In the end, without firing a shot, China has become a financial giant in the Third World, while America has lost much influence there. China's chess game is only getting stronger as it sets up its Belt and Road plan across Asia. A modern Silk Road, this is intended to link markets across over 50 countries from both land and sea, with China as the financial leader. In effect, what this would do is shift the entire global economy away from the West and towards China and its Third World allies. In other words, the future of world economics will likely be China, just as it was for thousands of years. Next this week, we'll also look at the Philippines, a country that is inseparably linked to the U.S. economy and one of our oldest allies. But our relationship has become very strained under President Duterte since 2016. Coming from a very conservative Catholic nation, President Duterte continues to shock the world with his blunt personality and his radical solutions to domestic problems like crime and drugs. To win the global war on drugs and cleanse Filipino society of addiction, Duterte has given soldiers and police the green light to shoot and allegedly torture even low-level drug offenders. This has created a diplomatic crisis with the West that accuses him of crimes against humanity. In response to constant criticism from abroad, Duterte has gone as far as to compare President Obama to a monkey, to telling the European Union to F off, to threatening to declare war on Canada and dump freight loads of trash on Canadian shores, to telling his soldiers that they can help themselves to rape women or shoot unarmed hostages if necessary to win the war on drugs, and even pulling the Philippines out of the International Criminal Court for allegedly interfering in the Philippines' domestic issues. But he is still extremely popular in the Philippines and has been called an elected dictator. And even more so after he claimed to have solved the 50-year civil war with Muslim freedom fighters in southern Mindanao using brute force. Although terrorist attacks continue by Islamic State and Abu Sayyaf, the conflict has claimed more than 100,000 lives. Next, you'll briefly look at how China, Indonesia, and the U.S. are involved in the debates over climate change. Don't worry, climate change is way too overwhelming to look at in 1 week. But I wanted you to see how both America and China are using the climate change debates as propaganda to secure their own interests. In short, the international community set up the Paris Agreement of 2016 with the shared goal of managing spikes in global temperature and promoting green energy alternatives. Although this Paris Agreement is mostly talk and there's no real consequence for breaking the treaty, President Trump drew great criticism when he pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement, arguing that it was unbalanced against U.S. interests. In response, China skillfully used Trump's decision as propaganda by presenting China as the better leader for the world in the global battle against climate change. This is very hypocritical because China pollutes far more than any other country and is doing very little to reduce its carbon footprint, unlike the United States. China's obvious ulterior motive is to outmaneuver the U.S. as a global power and tout itself as in the green energy market. Building on climate change, you also look at Indonesia and how it's changing today. I want you to see how the developed world's cravings for palm oil and lumber are directly contributing to the extinction of species like orangutans. The irreparable destruction of Indonesia's rainforest directly causes climate change by increasing worldwide temperatures, making Indonesia just one part in a vicious cycle of supply and demand across Asia, with global human consequences. And lastly, focus on the South China Sea conflict. Even though no shots have been fired yet, countries in East Asia are now on the brink of nuclear war over uninhabited islands. Asia's Cold War is very puzzling to outsiders who can't see why billions of dollars are at stake over these uninhabited islands, not to mention each country's national pride. With no diplomatic solution in sight, China is flexing its military muscle by quietly taking much of the region, without actually firing a shot. Much to the panic of their Asian neighbors, who are terrified of losing massive financial opportunities that the islands might bring to their growing economies. Read the articles this week to see exactly why these islands are worth fighting an international Cold War over. And we're almost finished. I hope that by ending the course with conflicts happening right now, you might see how important Asia is for the future of mankind, as each country makes its mark on our increasingly globalized society.
And cut.